All right, great. We are going to get started now. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you might be joining us from. This is the 5th training program of the Oath for Sustainability Network Climate and Health Research Training Program. For this second cohort, we've had the opportunity to train more than 100 participants from about 54 countries. And the aim of our lab program is for us to train youths that are interested in conducting climate and health research in low and middle income countries. We have seen some amazing research work from all of the groups this cohort, and we are happy to say that we believe that they will be ready, that by the end of this program, all of them will have manuscripts that are being targeted in so many high impact journals. So what we do for each training program is we bring experts that would come train that will come train all participants on every stage of their research. So presently now, most groups in the Cohort program have been able to, conduct their data collection, their data extraction, and now they are at the stage where they are synthesizing their data and trying to bring everything together. We have seen amazing topics related to water security, food insecurity as well. We have seen some other topics related to healthcare systems and climate and health adaptation. That is just to mention a few. So I would love if everybody would continue introducing themselves in the chat. Oh, okay. I think we have some people here already. So we have Nora from Kampala, Uganda. We have Raphael from Nigeria, Moses from Nigeria, Timothy from Nigeria, Zainab from Nigeria, Helias from Ethiopia. And Nora said is working with the climate change and food security team. We have Melanie from Kenya and so many other people like that. I hope we'll still have more people joining this training today. So quickly for today, we have an amazing speaker amongst us today. When I read our profile, I was like, "Ooh, this is this is a big shot." And we are so, we are happy and honored to have her join us here today. We are grateful. So today we have Dr. Maria Delnord. She is an EU public health practitioner. She is an epidemiologist at the Belgian Institute of Health. She's also a Marie Curie Fellow. When we hear the name Marie Curie, that's the top shot in science research. And she's presently an affiliate lecturer at the Science Po University, which is a top shot selective science research university. So I'm really, really glad to open the floor for Dr. Delnord. Please take the floor now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Danny, for the great introduction. I actually feel very humbled to be here with you today and to learn more also about your network, maybe learn more about you also through the conversation. Yeah. I actually prefer when things are not so formal. So I hope today that it won't be just a lecture, but that we can actually have a discussion. As Demi said, so my background is more in epidemiology. I started out more in child health research, and right now I'm working on cancer control policies. So I guess over the years, I've been involved in different areas of health, and I think the red thread kind of in these different experiences has been really to see how do you make sure that your research has an impact. So you guys now are at that stage where you have all been involved in your different research project, either collecting data, analyzing the data, probably getting into statistics and making sure that you're choosing the right models. But at the end of the day, how do you make sure that your data, you have powerful messages that can be taken up so that it actually makes a difference? So this is what we'll be talking about today, and I hope that some of the tips that I share with you today will be helpful for the future in the coming months. So let me try and share the screen. Okay, can everybody see the slides?
Yes.
All right. So for the title for today's session, how to sum up your research, discussion, and conclusion, but more importantly, the importance of planning your research impact. So what we will see together today are three things. So the research, of course. So what are the traditional ways about going about your discussion and your conclusion? So what are the things that you want to make sure you check off in terms of having something that is robust and coherent? But then, of course, not to be a little bit provocative, but you have to go also further and look beyond just the science and beyond just the analysis of the results. And this session will talk a little bit more about what I mean by looking beyond the science. This will bring us to the fundamentals of knowledge translation. Knowledge translation, maybe this is the term that some of you have heard already. In some research settings, is also referred to as knowledge transfer. This is another term that is used. And then some tips to increase the impact of your research besides just scientific articles. I think it's important also to consider these if you look towards the sustainability of your results, right? And people taking these up beyond just the fact of publishing in a scientific journal. Just in terms of the format, feel free to interrupt. Actually, as I said, I prefer when things are more like a conversation. So I will go through the slides. I'll try to go not too quick. If you want to have clarifications during each slide, that's perfectly fine. And then any other questions, we can keep those for the end for the discussion. All right, so let's start, let's say with the basics. So how do you write a strong discussion and conclusion? Let's say according to PLOS, right, which is one of the main editors and publishers. So this is probably something that you are familiar with. I guess if you're following this session today, you've probably looked into it also yourselves. You want to make sure that you summarize the key findings in clear and concise language. I think we can all agree on this point. You want to acknowledge when a hypothesis may be incorrect. Acknowledging when a hypothesis may be incorrect is not to go against your results, but it's just to be clear and transparent about the limitations of your methodology. And perhaps when you don't have enough statistical power, or if, let's say, you're working on a subset within a population, you would want to indicate whether or not this is representative and applicable at population level. So this will be the time for you in the discussion to take those limitations into account and to be transparent with the reader about those. The third thing that you want to, keep in mind is you want to place your study within the context of previous studies without being too rigid about what needs to be in the discussion. More often than not, you will do a little bit of that already in your intro, right? When you want to bring forward the added value of your study and why you went into that topic, usually you will do some of that in the intro. That's fine. I guess in any type of lecture or presentation, even sometimes when you repeat things, not saying copy paste, but if you repeat things in a slightly different way, this helps also the reader understand your point. Then, of course, I guess one of the defining features of the discussion is that you want to kind of give a hint into what is the potential in terms of future research. It's almost like, all of that said, taking into account the new results that I found, how can we go further? In the discussion and conclusion, this is where you want to put it in. And then, of course, provide the reader with a takeaway statement to end the manuscript. On the right-hand side, I just put this is, if you Google PLOS strategies for discussion and conclusion, you will find also this schema that they've put in. So this is nothing new, but maybe I will pause here just 1 second and ask you guys actually a question. Do you feel that this is comprehensive, or based on your experience, do you feel that something's missing from these 5 steps? So this is an open question. Feel free to raise your hand, and maybe Demi, I'll ask for your help just to see if there's a hand raised or not.
In the chat. Oh, okay. Just give me a minute. Let us see that. So does anybody have an answer to the question that Dr. Delnord just requested? So she has been reviewing these 5 steps on how to write your discussions. So do you think that there is any part that you have been using that you've seen from your experience that is not included in the 5 steps that she just shared here? Does anybody have anything to say? Anything at all? There is no right or wrong answer.
Exactly.
Okay. Can I speak?
Yes,
Yes,
Nora,
please.
please speak up.
Okay, I personally feel for discussion, this is comprehensive because all I know about a discussion is you don't usually repeat the results. It's more of telling the reader or maybe explaining to the reader our takeaways and maybe comparing them with already done research. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct, Nora. So
Thank you so much, Nora.
Thank you. So indeed, you want to do this and make sure that you put in the context of other studies. Maybe one thing that personally I've done also and that I've seen around in a few manuscripts is that besides just acknowledging your limitations of your study, you can also put into kind of spotlight on the strength of your study. So this is kind of another take on you want to discuss the limitations, but also feel free in your discussion to highlight the strengths. So this is something additional that you can include.
Yeah. Sorry, before you go on, in the chat box, Victoria just said exactly what you said right now. She said, perhaps also talking about limitations and provide recommendations at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so let's try, okay, Plus is, one of the main publishers. Let's try and see if another one of the publishers has to do something. And we'll go back to that red sentence. We'll get back to that. It's in the next slide also. So let's check out what Elsevier is saying. So Elsevier is saying, in your discussion, make sure to mention the gaps in previous research. So Plus said the same thing. Summarize your key findings. That's fine. Plus also said the same thing. Interpret your results in comparison with other papers. That's also fine. Address the limitations. Okay. Again, they didn't put highlight the strength, but I would strongly recommend to do this. It helps. And then the implications for future research. So now comes this issue of actually, if you do this, and you summarize your results, you put it in the context of maybe other research that might have existed before, what perhaps you still haven't done, or they don't give you the keys to that and the structure that they provide, is how do you make people care? I guess this is kind of the key thing in research. Sometimes it's true that people, especially not experts, can feel that in the research world, sometimes things can be very niche or kind of only for scientists in their ivory tower and disconnected from what is going on in the field. At the same time, we know that working on different research projects, oftentimes as a researcher, what you want to make sure is that you're having an impact in real life, right? And the people that are in real life working at the local level are not necessarily the same ones that'll go to PubMed and extract the study. So what do you do about that? So in order to kind of conceptualize when we're talking about evidence-informed decision-making, right, or evidence-informed practice, how do we go beyond the fact that sometimes in the discussion, we are stuck with the format of a scientific article, although we would want to make those results maybe more accessible to a broader audience. So indeed, these are all of the different journals that maybe you've come across. Usually research is disseminated through those mediums. How do you go about looking at the impact? So we know that the impact of research going in BJOJ or the European Journal of Public Health, you can have the journal impact factor will sometimes facilitate kind of pointing people in the right direction. So based on the reputation of the journal, maybe this is where your study will attract a little bit more attention, where when I'm saying, how do people care? Maybe the journal in which you publish, this is something that people will pay attention to. There's also the H-index. You can, maybe some of you have heard of this before, which is based on the number of articles that have received at least a certain number of citations over a period. There's other measures also. The point is, you have a discussion. You want to make sure that people do things based on your discussion. Pay attention also to where you are publishing and that within your discussion and the text, that you make it accessible enough because it won't always be just experts that are reading your discussion and conclusion, and yet these are the people that you want to leverage your results into action, right, and for intervention. So it's kind of like balancing a fine line between being in that kind of traditional and rigorous format of a scientific article, but also making sure that you can have an impact with a broader group of stakeholders. So this is kind of just to also put a little slant on it. What you see here is from Lancet Public Health. They looked at the number of citations that papers were getting. And maybe could I ask one of you to kind of interpret what you see on this slide? So what would be the key message here if you're looking at the number of papers versus the number of citations?
You have anyone raising their hand?
So maybe if I put it in another way, do most papers get many citations?
No.
I'm not sure if I heard that correctly. Could you repeat?
Fewer papers get more citations. So very
Exactly.
few papers get more citations. The other way around.
Exactly. Very few papers get a lot of citations. So this brings us back to the question of how do you have an impact? How do you make sure that what you are putting in the discussion at the end of the day has an impact? So yes, think about where you're publishing, think about the narrative that you're bringing into your discussion, but also maybe try to explore and keep in mind, right, with that same line of thinking that it might not always be the top experts that are reading your paper, that sometimes in terms of making your research accessible, you may want to also leverage different types of platforms for disseminating your research further, right? So once it is published, if you have the chance to have it in open access, that will also be something that you want to take into account. When you are, I guess this is the step after the discussion and conclusion, right? When you're about to submit, just keep that in mind. The only drawback with getting things in open access and then trying to disseminate them, for instance, on social media, is that sometimes for open access, it can be quite expensive to publish. So this is kind of a limitation that indeed sometimes you might have to deal with. But in terms of impact, try to see also broad, the journal, but then what are the platforms where you could actually make your research more visible. So going towards, this topic of evidence-informed decision-making, this is something that is encouraged by the WHO. If you don't know the EVIPNet network, I strongly encourage you to have a look at the Evidence-Informed Policy Network material because they have good tips in terms of kind of doing this translation of evidence for other types of stakeholders, including health policy planners. So this would be a good resource to look into. For evidence-informed policymaking, this is also something that is encouraged by the OECD and also by Cochrane, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. So when we're talking about evidence decision-making, so we're kind of touching upon the issues of, okay, where do I publish? How should I frame the discussion and conclusion? Other types of stakeholders, not necessarily experts, will read the discussion and conclusion. I want to make sure that they understand, but take into consideration that you're also competing against things that are outside the realm of scientific journals and articles, right? When people are talking about the best available research evidence, of course, people make decisions. And when I talk about decisions, I'm not talking only about the politicians that are sitting in an office at the Ministry of Health. I'm also talking about, it could be middle-level managers in hospitals or in different local communities. They will also consider the broader environmental and organizational context, right? So your recommendations in your discussion, make sure that you make an easy link towards how is that going to be implemented on the ground. If you make that clear also for people in your discussion, it will be easier for your research to have an impact. And if you are making research, and I'm sure that you are all doing this, kind of providing high quality evidence, of course, you want to facilitate that your evidence is used. So try as much as possible to put your discussion, of course, in the context of previous studies, but also in the context of what actually goes on in real life for the people that are affected by your specific research issue. So decision-making will be done based on, yes, what you are presenting in terms of statistical analyses and results, but also in terms of other factors that perhaps will, if you kind of address them at the writing stage, allow you to have a much stronger narrative in your discussion and conclusion. So in terms of the discussion and conclusion, of course, you also need to kind of mind the gap between science, policy, and practice. It's not always a completely straight road. There can be a lag between research priorities and the needs of decision makers. So by that, I mean the timing. So it's not because you're working on a specific topic that this necessarily is at the top of the list in terms of decision-making or priorities of the policymaker, right? So sometimes you have to work against that. There can be also communication issues. Yes, you can try to summarize the evidence as much as you want, but to some level, sometimes there is uncertainty, right? You have confidence intervals around your estimates that you will need to discuss. And sometimes it can feel that decision makers will also want only a yes or no answer. Whereas when we're working with data, of course, oftentimes it's a little bit more complicated than just a yes or no. So you have to be able to navigate also uncertainty. Going back to the discussion where they mentioned that you have to summarize the evidence and highlight the limitations, this is where you will try to explain that uncertainty around your estimate and give a little bit more explanation for why is there uncertainty. Resource constraints, it can be time, it can be people to take up your research or to actually make an impact about it. This will also contribute to the discrepancy sometimes between science and what is done in the field. Other priorities, but last but not least, and especially with, we saw this with the COVID crisis, fake news. This is something that you will be competing against. They are not analyzing data, not spending a full year to, put the database into shape and make the best conclusions. And then they will come up with messages that sometimes go viral and are much quicker at having an influence on people compared to high quality evidence that you would want people to use. But this is something to consider also more broadly, not just when you have a research project, in terms of what you're putting into your discussion here, and this is what we will see also at the end of the session today, but you have to consider your research and your scientific article as one of the tools to reach people. But of course, as part of a project, there are also other tools that you could try to use, such as infographics or policy briefs, but we'll get to that. So how do you kind of facilitate the uptake of research? How do you bridge the gap? This is the mechanism of knowledge translation. Knowledge translation is an area of implementation research. So a lot of the tools of how to facilitate the uptake of evidence will be embedded within that area of research. So if you have never heard about this term, I strongly encourage you to look into this. They will have some tips, for instance, on if you're working with more the general public, how are you more effective with doing a public health campaign and how to drive that more effectively. So this is a term that was developed in Canada, and more in Northern America has had a longer tradition in terms of how do you do implementation research and make sure that you have a wide reach with evidence. So now what I would like to do, when I was saying evidence-informed policymaking and decision-making, kind of the big international organizations are encouraging it, I would just like us to take 3 minutes to view this video. We tried it with Demi and it wasn't working from my screen. So I put the link of the video in the chat, and maybe what you could do is copy paste it in another window so that you can see it. And we'll take 5 minutes. It's a 2.5-minute video so that everybody can have a look, and then we will reconvene. Demi, does that work?
Yes, that works. I have sent the link to the group chat. We tried playing it from here, but let me see if I can will you try it again, Marie, and let's see if we can hear the sound.
All right, let me try and click.
Yeah, I don't think we can hear that. So what I can do is maybe if I click it from here,
When we talk about
I
knowledge,
will be the only one to hear it. So I think what we can do is I think we can just let everybody, watch the video briefly on their own. I think that will be.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll just take 5 minutes, and then by then I think everybody should be able to see the video.
Yeah, I can also try to share my screen. Let's see if I can share my screen and then everybody can probably maybe view my own screen.
when we talk about knowledge translation,
Hear that?
KT in
Yes.
Okay.
it means lots of things to different people. We find that visualizing our Cochrane evidence as a tree helps us explain knowledge translation. The question we want to answer is a seed. For a seed to grow, it must first develop roots. For Cochrane evidence, establishing roots is about reaching out and partnering with the right end users to make sure we identify the right question. Without a stable trunk, a tree will not flourish. For Cochrane evidence, the criteria we use to develop the question, the methods we apply to answer our question, and the way we present our evidence are all strengthened by the input of the right people. A tree only grows through the spread of its branches. Our Cochrane evidence will only prosper if we support its dissemination. No one branch follows the same course. We should disseminate the findings of our evidence in different formats, languages, and through different channels. These should be tailored to help our end users find and use the evidence they need. A tree matures, branches lengthen and extend, leaves and fruit grow. There are ways we support the implementation of the findings from our Cochrane evidence into practice to help it have an impact beyond publication. Over time, fruit falls from the tree and life continues through saplings. As our Cochrane evidence is used, we should respond to how it evolves. A tree grows best when it is grown in the right environment with water and light. The best conditions for Cochrane evidence to have impact is where a culture for evidence-based decision-making exists. To promote this culture, we can advocate for decisions to be based on the best synthesized evidence, and we can promote the work of Cochrane. In this way, we support Cochrane in its vision of a world of improved health, where decisions about health and healthcare are informed by high-quality, relevant, and up-to-date synthesized research evidence. Whatever your role is in the Cochrane community, you are supporting the tree to grow. Knowledge translation is everyone's responsibility.
So that was just a short.
Create the LLC. It doesn't really cost.
Oh my.
Okay, I think we're back on track. Let me try and share again my screen. Thanks, Demi, for making that work. All right, so let us go back to the presentation. Okay, here we are. So the point that I wanted to make with this kind of this short video is that, of course, you can replace Cochrane evidence with actually your research evidence that you're providing, right? And I think what comes out as a key message from the video is that you want to make sure in your dissemination, in your discussion and conclusion, that first of all, that you're leveraging and providing key messages that are really backed up by evidence. When we're talking about evidence to inform decision-making, the baseline is that you are providing good and reliable data. In order for someone to judge whether or not this is good and reliable data, this is what they will look at the discussion and conclusion to make sure that you have been transparent in terms of the limitations and the strengths. So this is the first bit. Then in the video, they highlight the fact that in order for your evidence to really have a broad reach, you have to take into account end users, so the people that will be reading your discussion and conclusion. I think, why are we kind of looking into this now in terms of the involvement of stakeholders is that ideally, and I don't know where each of you are at the stage of writing your manuscripts, but one of the tips that I would recommend is that when you are kind of developing your key message, right, and the interpretation, if you have access to people that would be directly impacted by your results, try to discuss it with them so that you can capture insights on in the field, what will that change? Or in the field, what will be the trade-off of the recommendation that I'm providing? So that in terms of making that translation, right, and speaking also people's language and the way that they want to hear it and understand it, you can put that as part of your manuscript if you've made that effort to reach out to some of the stakeholders. Usually in research projects, you're not, and I hope most of you are working within teams, if as part of your conclusions, it will have an impact on clinical practice. Try to talk to the doctors that would be impacted by your results to be able to frame that in a way that will make sense also for them. If your results will have an impact on, let's say at the local level for a specific subset of population or age group, try to have a discussion with the caretakers or in terms of climate, with the people that are responsible for making those decisions in order to make sure that the terms that you're using and the recommendations that you are providing are relevant for these people also. And then get closer towards implementation. The discussion is kind of your time to shine in terms of what will come from this research, in which sectors, are there any types of alternatives or conflicts of interest that you can also point out in that section. This is where you will want to do it. And then finally, of course, the discussion is the moment for you when we say put it into context. You need to have systems level thinking. So I'm sure most of you, and it's definitely in terms of climate will have strong interactions with many other sectors, whether it is agriculture, whether it is air pollution policies, whether it is health. So you're in a privileged position to really make those links already within your manuscript. Don't leave loose ends in terms of providing just your results and then hoping that people will figure it out and make those links for themselves. There is also some sense of responsibility and ownership also of your data that you need to take to facilitate and make sure that it is used in the right way. So have this systems level thinking, try to have a conversation with the stakeholders that would be impacted, and this will really kind of nourish also your discussion and conclusion to make sure that it has kind of a strong basis for this impact that you are looking for. So this relies on kind of identifying your target audience. I'm not going to go too much into this because I think with the conversation that we've had up until now, you kind of have a sense of where I'm getting at in terms of your stakeholders. You want to define also your objectives. So how do you want, and maybe I'll spend just 1 minute to talk about this a little bit more, but when we're talking about impact, what kind of impact are you trying to get? Are you trying to have an instrumental impact, which means, do you want to change policy? Do you want to change clinical guidelines? Or do you want to have a conceptual impact? Meaning you want people to reframe or an issue. You want people to take another stance on it. So an example of a conceptual impact is, and I'll speak from, I guess, from my perspective working on cancer control, oftentimes in prevention, you can have two paradigms, either a high-risk approach, where for prevention, you will focus on people with familiar risk factors for a specific type of cancer, or you will have a population-based approach, where you're looking more into screening campaigns. So these are two types of paradigms that you can have. Which paradigm would you like people to lean towards? Is it more attitudinal or cultural, for instance? So do you want people in the general public and society to change their way of thinking about the issue that you're discussing? So try to identify clear objectives already in your discussion. Again, this goes back to how do you want to frame your narrative and your message. Now I think these are my 5 last slides, but now that we've kind of gone around the different things that will impact and kind of the ingredients for strengthening your discussion, your paper is accepted. It's, all great and done. Actually, the story doesn't end there. If you really want to have a good research impact, what you want to try to do, look at other outlets besides just scientific journal. Remember that first slide where we said that actually most papers get few citations? try to look into other tools. Infographics are a great tool, whether you're looking at having a short report. They're a great tool because you can either reuse them very easily in social media, also on different websites. So they're very fast and effective. And also oftentimes visuals will actually reinforce the message that you want to provide. So think about your scientific article, but don't forget about the other kind of quick wins that you can make in terms of having an impact. Another very helpful tool is policy briefs. I guess we could do a full 2-hour lecture on how to develop a good policy briefs. I'm just dropping this here. If you're interested into how to write policy briefs, this is something that you can look into, but basically it's another writing format to support decision-making, where here you will not only put your research in the context of other studies, but you will go a step further in terms of policy options. And then finally, be mindful of timing, right? So when your research will be published, when you will look into different formats to kind of highlight your key messages, when is this research actually released? Like, when are you doing your dissemination activities? Are the health policy planners in the phase of agenda setting, or have policy or decision already been made and adopted, and your research actually counteracts what has just been put in place? So keep that in mind. Again, this goes back to what is the framing of your results in the broader context. And so now this brings us to our conclusion. So I hope that you will kind of see in the presentation today, there is no one-to-one direct link between research, policy, and practice. They are kind of obstacles that you have to overcome. This will depend also on the strength of your discussion and the other tools around your research project that you've leveraged in terms of communication. You have to know your evidence. When you want to have an impact, you also want to make sure that people will make decisions based on good quality research, high quality research. And then finally, you need to plan your impact. So a lot of this, ideally, you would want to have thought about it at the beginning of your research project, especially in terms of building relations with the stakeholders, because this is not something in terms of trust, for instance, that you can kind of do it as an afterthought. If you've built that in, stakeholder feedback and participatory approach into your research methodologies, of course, this will strengthen your manuscript, but this will also take you a long way in terms of having an impact and action. So I will end here, stop sharing my screen. Thank you for your attention here. But I think you will get the slides, a few resources that you can go to after the session. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Delnord. I would say that I think I speak for everybody if I say that this has been really amazing. You took us through different circles all joined together, but you know, it's still all different. And I would say that never in my life have I seen someone talk about the importance of focusing on your knowledge impact, like the research you are putting out there. It doesn't make sense for you to just put it out there and nobody is seeing it, nobody is talking about it, or nobody even understands it. And one thing that I have always, you know, said time and time again is that I usually have issues with the way academic publishers try to translate their research or, you know, talk about it to everybody. They are usually all about the numbers, the data, the different graphs that nobody would, you know, understand. But how do we make it make sense in layman language? So I really love the fact that, you know, you narrow down on that, and it really does make sense. So thank you so much for focusing on that. Really appreciate that. So this is the time that we're opening up for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to just raise up your hand and unmute yourself and talk. If you cannot, you can always drop it in the chat. We have Nora said, talking about sharing findings with key stakeholders. As I was doing background reading on writing a scoping review, JBI Scoping Review Methodology Group recommends that after data synthesis, researchers should get back to relevant stakeholders to discuss findings. I think it helps to increase relevancy and impact. Marie, do you have anything to say to what Nora said earlier?
Yes, 100%. So this is what we were saying, right? As part of your narrative, when you were building kind of the text for your scientific article, if you were able to discuss with the people that will be impacted by your research, kind of how they understand it, but also their expectations, right? In the discussion, this is the time where you can balance and put your message into context of maybe other competing interests or other priorities that go beyond the scope of your research, because your research will be on a specific topic, but in real life, your topic will be placed, you know, kind of in a constellation of other priorities. So definitely, if you have access to the key stakeholders that will be impacted by your research, it will only be a plus and a huge support in terms of increasing the impact of your evidence.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marie. So do we have any questions? If you have a question for Marie, please unmute yourself and speak up. Does anybody have questions? Okay, I think I have a question. So I have seen so many publishers try to give you a breakdown of what they want you to, you know, put in your research. But at times, some of the guidelines that they give, at times it doesn't completely fit into what you're trying to, you know, the evidence you're trying to create in your research. So take, for example, maybe you're working on a policy recommendation, and you have probably maybe a publisher indicating that, you know, they want research that is much more focused on practice, and you have already, you know, indicated, you have already put together your discussion. And for a niche that is still a little bit narrow, like climate and health, we see some of this happen. And, you know, there's not a lot of journals that is probably doing like call for papers for climate and health right now. How do you try to tweak your discussion and conclusion to fit what the publisher wants without actually, you know, directly changing your evidence?
Yeah, that's kind of the difficult one, because at the same time, you want to keep in mind your stakeholders. The publisher will not be directly make use of the results, but he just wants to make sure that the paper he will publish is coherent with the other compendium that, you know, the papers that he's traditionally used to publishing. I would say that to some extent, not like forget about the publisher, but at the same time, you are in control of where you submit, right? So I understand the constraint of there may be not so many journals that the climate topic will be, you know, accessible in terms of where you can submit. But I would say between the prerogatives of the publisher, of course, explore the different outlets. There are also more general public health journals that are very interested into climate topics. So I would definitely also branch out instead of just focusing on the climate specific journals, on more generalist ones. The reason why I mentioned this is to some extent, in terms of your dissemination strategy, you don't also want to preach to the choir, right? So sometimes if you are, you know, kind of leading an intervention, I mean, just speaking for myself, usually if I'm interested in research, I will not put in Google or in PubMed the publisher. What I will put is just the topic, wherever it is published.
Definitely,
So, yeah.
definitely. That really makes sense. That really makes sense. Thank you so much, Marie. Amza asked a question in the chat. It said, how to address recommendations and policies and be heard as a student doing research. Is it based on the results we found? Thank you for this session.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, it's a very good question. And I think it goes back to of course, research, there's one person as first author of the paper, but in my experience, there are very few papers with one person doing everything, right? So usually your paper will be part of a larger project. So try to leverage also those networks in terms of the credibility, because of course, credibility is one of the things that will make people kind of help take the decision on whether or not I can go ahead with the recommendation that is provided. So leverage your networks and try to, even if you're just a student, make those also links to maybe the broader research team or the university that you're working in terms of kind of putting that out. At the same time, once the paper is published, people will not look whether it's just a PhD student or a master student. They will just take the research as it is and look at the affiliations. So to some extent, maybe it can be an issue in terms of perhaps when you're applying for conference abstracts or what's not, but in the grand spectrum of things down the line, people will look at either the journal impact factor, the research team that put it out, meaning the university or affiliation.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Delnord. I really appreciate that. I don't think we have any more questions anymore. So I would say that on behalf of myself, the lab committee members and all the participants of the second cohort, we say a very big thank you. Really appreciate your time, your effort, your expertise. Thank you so much for impacting us with the knowledge that you've gained from your so many and many years of experience. We really, really appreciate your time here today. Thank you so much. We are going to continue the conversation with you on email. Please, if you have any other resources that you think can still help us, what we do is we try to gather information from previous training sessions and send it to all participants in the cohort. So if you have any other, documents that you have access to that could help us, please send it in. We would love to share it with everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Demi. It was my pleasure.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so I hope we have all learned a lot from that session. I personally have, learned a lot from it. And I believe that at the stage that we are in our research now, we can all take into account everything that our speaker has shared with us, and we can apply it to our research. Presently, we know that there are some teams that have been struggling in the parts that they are in their research. We had a team leads meeting last week, and so many of the team leads have been able to communicate with us some of the issues that they are experiencing in their teams, even though not a lot of teams have similar kind of issues. But we know that presently so many things have gotten past the stage of data collection and data extraction. And also from the individual teams checking that we did, we saw the stages at which all research teams are. But one thing that I would particularly love to touch on for everybody is that we are at the last quarter of this program. And one of the things that a minute, please, everybody, just give me a minute. Okay, so one of the things that is important for us that we've said from before now is that all the manuscripts for all teams are due on the 25th of June. So whatever point or stage that your team has gotten to, make sure that you have your research manuscript ready on the 25th of June. The second issue that we want to touch base on is the teams that are struggling with participants that are not forthcoming, that are just, they are just MIA. They are not really contributing significantly to all the teams. Now, emphasis on the significant, because this is research work. It needs the equal input of all the members of the team. We have communicated this with all of your team leads to take the liberty of removing team members that have not been active. So if you have not, this is an opportunity for you to reach out to your team leads between now and Sunday and talk about how you would continue, contributing on the research going forward. Because another thing is that for every journal that you're going to be publishing in, they would specifically require the duties of each authors on all of those papers. So if your team leads cannot specifically say that this is what you have contributed to, they would have to remove you from the group. So please try as much as possible to join your